I'm going to tell you something that sounds like science fiction, except it's coming from the mouths of Nobel Prize winners and professors at Oxford and MIT. Reality isn't real, not in the way you think. The universe we're living in, the one with stars and gravity and solid matter, is being computed, generated, rendered like a video game, on hardware we can't see, for purposes we don't understand. And the physicists who've looked deepest into the math, they're not laughing this off anymore. They're publishing papers, running experiments. Some of them will tell you, on the record, that the probability we're living in base reality, the original, non-simulated universe, is effectively zero. That's not me saying it. That's them. The people who built the Large Hadron Collider and calculated the mass of the Higgs boson. They've done the math, and the math says we're inside something. So why aren't you hearing about this on the evening news? Why does this sound like a fringe idea when the math behind it is rock solid? Because if they're right, every assumption we've built civilization on collapses. And I mean everything. Stick with me here, because what I'm about to walk you through isn't speculation. It's physics. And it's terrifying. Here's what they tell us. The universe is made of particles. Particles follow laws. The laws are consistent, measurable, eternal. Physics works the same way everywhere, from the inside of an atom to the edge of the observable cosmos. That's the story. That's what you learned in school. And for a long time, that was enough. But then we started looking closer. We built quantum computers. We modeled reality at the smallest scales. And some very uncomfortable patterns started showing up. The universe doesn't behave like a smooth, continuous thing. It behaves like it's made of discrete chunks, pixels, if you will. There's a smallest possible unit of space, the Planck length. A smallest unit of time, the Planck time. You can't zoom in past that. The universe has a resolution limit, just like a computer screen. Then there's the speed of light. It's not just a speed limit for matter, it's a speed limit for information. Nothing can transmit data faster than light, which is exactly what you'd expect if reality was being computed, and the speed of light is the refresh rate of the processor. And then, this is where it gets strange. There's the observer effect. In quantum mechanics, particles don't have definite states until they're measured. A photon doesn't commit to being in one place until you look at it, which is insane unless you think of it like a video game. The game doesn't fully render the forest until your character walks into it. Why waste processing power on something no one's observing? The math of quantum mechanics has been confirmed 1,000,000 times over. But the implication, that reality is optional until someone checks, that's not in the textbooks. Now let me tell you who's saying this out loud. Nick Bostrom, philosopher at Oxford, published a paper in 2003 that's still cited in major journals. His argument is purely logical. If it's possible to simulate a conscious mind, and we're already heading that direction with AI, then any sufficiently advanced civilization will run billions of ancestor simulations. Which means the number of simulated realities will vastly outnumber base reality. So statistically, if you're conscious, you're probably in a simulation. Not might be. Probably are. That's math, not mysticism. Then there's James Gates, physicist at the University of Maryland. He spent decades studying string theory and supersymmetry. And in the equations that describe the fundamental forces, he found error-correcting codes. The same codes used in browsers and computer systems to detect and fix glitches. They're embedded in the math that governs quarks and electrons. He's on record saying it looks like there's a layer of computation beneath reality. Not metaphorically, literally. Elon Musk has said the odds we're in base reality are 1 in billions. Neil deGrasse Tyson puts it at 50-50. These aren't random podcasters. These are people with access to data most of us never see. And some of them have gone further. Physicist Tom Campbell, who used to work for NASA, claims he's run experiments that show reality behaves exactly like a virtual environment, optimizing for conscious observation. He's not fringe, he's published. And then there are the experiments. Researchers have looked for signs that space-time has a pixelated structure, that there's a grid underneath. Some results suggest it's there. They're careful with the language, but the data is the data. You can't fake a Planck scale resolution limit. So if we're in a simulation, what does that mean? First, it means someone or something is running it. A post-human civilization, an AI, a being we'd call a god. The distinction stops mattering after a certain point. Second, it means the rules can be changed. Physics isn't law, it's code, and code can be rewritten. Every miracle, every paranormal event, every glitch people report, maybe that's exactly what they are. Glitches, patches, admin-level intervention. Third, it means we're probably not the first layer. If we're simulated, and we're close to simulating conscious beings ourselves, then we're likely in a nested stack. Simulations within simulations within simulations, which means base reality, if it even exists, is so far removed from what we experience that trying to imagine it is pointless. And fourth, it means history might be editable. If reality is computed, then the past isn't a fixed series of events. It's stored data. Data that could be altered, overwritten, recompiled, which would explain why the historical record is so full of holes and contradictions, why entire civilizations seem to vanish, why maps change, why buildings that shouldn't exist by our timeline are standing right there in photographs. If the admins can edit the code, they can edit the past, and we'd never know, because our memories would update with it. You want to know why Tartaria was scrubbed from the maps? Maybe it wasn't scrubbed from paper. Maybe it was scrubbed from the source files, and we're living in the updated build, wondering why something feels wrong. I know how this sounds. I know the instinct is to dismiss it, but here's the thing. The physicists aren't dismissing it. The ones who've spent their entire lives studying the deepest levels of reality are looking at the data and saying, yeah, this fits. It fits too well to ignore, and that should disturb you. Because if we're in a simulation, then everything you think is solid. Matter, time, history, your own thoughts, is contingent, rendered, controlled. And the people running it, they don't owe us an explanation. They don't have to tell us the rules. Maybe that's why the universe is so strange at the edges. Maybe that's why quantum mechanics makes no intuitive sense. Maybe that's why we keep finding things that don't fit. Because we're not supposed to see behind the curtain. But some people are looking anyway. Some people are finding the seams, the error-correcting codes, the resolution limits, the observer effect, the things that only make sense if reality is being computed in real time. So ask yourself this. If the smartest physicists alive think there's a better than even chance we're inside something, what does that mean for everything else you've been told? What does it mean for history, for authority, for the nature of consciousness itself? You don't have to believe me. But maybe start paying attention to what they're publishing, because the simulation hypothesis isn't fringe anymore. It's peer-reviewed, and that changes everything.